West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
All right, Thursday. Are you ready for the big Thursday show? Here we go. Thursday, July 23rd. Great to see you. The Bill Press Show starting off here on Free Speech TV and on Talker TV. That's our worldwide video stream, youtube.com/Talker TV. We love having you with us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Love to get those calls at 866-55-PRESS. And your comments always welcome on Twitter. That's why we're there on Twitter, at or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. President Obama heading off this evening from the White House for a 5-day trip to the continent of Africa. He'll be visiting 2 countries, Kenya and Ethiopia. For many ways, it is a nostalgic trip for the president because he'll be going, of course, to his father's homeland, Kenya. And unfortunately, they say for security reasons, he will not be able to visit his father's home village, which he did when he was a senator. But family members are coming to see him in the capital. White House made a big announcement yesterday that the administration is in the final stages of drafting a plan to shut down Gitmo. It's about time. There were once about 800 prisoners held there. Now there are only 116 left. Half of them have already been cleared of no charges. We're just waiting to find a country that will take them. Meanwhile, we're spending $100 million a year to house those 116 prisoners. That's ridiculous. We ought to get rid of the ones with no charges and then bring the rest of them here to this country. There are certainly U.S. prisons that can take them and securely. And then once we close the prison, of course, we ought to get rid of that naval base in Cuba. If we're really going to normalize relations with Cuba, we don't have to have a naval base there. And Donald Trump goes to the border today. Watch out. He is personally going to build that big wall at the border. All right, lots coming up today. Again, we want to hear from you at 866-55-PRESS. Thanks for joining us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection equipment. This includes all personnel identified as staff, students, role players, VIPs, and support staff. Face, eyes, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now? Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent? Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Shoot your hands. Help me. Shoot your hands. Back to me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Donald Trump goes to the border today. Sheriff Donald. He'll build the fence all by himself. Or dig a ditch. Or build a wall. Whatever. And make Mexico pay for it, of course. Hey, hello, everybody. It is a Thursday, July 21. And it's so good to see you today. Here we are. The Bill Press Show in our nation's capital. In our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building. Great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us as we zip through the big news of the day on the political front, on the foreign policy front, whatever's happening here at the Congress, this end of Pennsylvania Avenue, just down the street from us, or down the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, well, halfway to Georgetown. The White House, we were down there yesterday for the briefing. We'll bring you up to date on all of that stuff and then tell you what's going on as well around the country, including more disturbing video out of Texas on the arrest and subsequent death in her jail cell of Sandra Bland. The latest on Dylan Roof, the latest on Chattanooga, and around the world, the latest on the Iran nuclear deal and the president's efforts to get support for that. Lots to talk about. We'll get right to it here and look forward to hearing from you at 866-55-PRESS. Your comments on Twitter, so welcome. Good to hear from you at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Team Press in place. Peter Rugburn, Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Thursday. How about it?
Thursday.
Yeah. You got a call, you got a beef, you got a complaint. Jamie Benson's your man. Ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Monty Canceller here. Videographer for the day, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and on Talker TV, while Cyprian Bolden continues to enjoy his café au lait in Paris this morning. Yes.
That's right.
But, of course, while watching the show.
That's right.
Exactly. And the Nets wrapped it up with the Nats, our Nats wrapped it up with the Mets last night. How about it? The Mets came in. Everybody was afraid this is going to be a sweep for the Mets, and it turned out the Nats beat them 2 out of 3.
It's a huge series win for them, man.
Big series win.
If they had lost that game yesterday afternoon, that would have put them just 1 game ahead of the Mets, and now they end up 3 games ahead, so it's a good place to be.
Mets in second place. We're thinking they could knock the Nats out of first. Didn't work that way last night with the help of Danny Espinosa.
The pitch, swing, and a liner towards third. Fair ball, base hit down the left field line. The Nationals take the lead. Taylor scores from second. Espinosa digs for second. He's in standing with a double and a run batted in. And it is 4-3 Washington.
Let me just say, by the way, because I was at this game yesterday.
Oh, you were?
It was a 12:30 first pitch. Yesterday afternoon, which more of that, please. We haven't had nearly enough day games this season. I love a good day game. But the Nationals, for as good as they are and as good as they look, they kept getting into all these situations. They have a runner on second and third, and then they'd end the inning. There you go. You going to be all right today, buddy?
Be fine. And that's the second time I'm knocked it over this morning. All right. Yes.
So they kept leaving runners on base all game long.
Hey, you won the game.
Pissing me off.
Stop complaining.
No, but what I'm saying is they finally delivered. They finally got these players on base, and someone finally got them in. So
Just for you, Peter.
Bottom
Just
of the eighth.
for you.
Bottom
Yeah.
of the eighth. They
Yeah.
came through.
You may like those day games. I don't. The Metro was much too crowded yesterday.
Oh, that's right.
When
Oh,
normally there
yeah.
are not that many people on the on the Metro. So okay, how about it? Can't win for losing.
A lot of Mets fans in town too, by the way.
Oh yeah,
lot of Mets
I know
fans here.
because we were there. When were we there? Sunday night, Monday night.
Yeah,
We were there
yeah,
Monday
yeah,
night?
right,
No,
right.
too many Mets fans.
A lot of Mets
Yeah,
fans.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah. They take Amtrak down here. They drive down. No,
It's an easy trip.
Stay in New York, right? It's just like the Phillies fans when they play the Phillies, man.
I don't go.
No.
Philadelphia has the worst fans in sports.
And you see this red all over the streets of Washington. No.
They have the scariest fans. I think.
They really
It's
do
a
have the
scary situation.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not joking. I will not go when the Phillies are in town.
Hey, Susan Page from USA Today joins us today. Always love having Susan in. Washington bureau chief for USA Today. And then we'll have reporters from Politico, from National Journal. Our trial lawyer friend Debbie Hines will be in to take a look at this Sandra Bland situation. We'll get right to the news of the day. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Inverness, Florida is where we go. Lori Beiswanger is this woman's
we
name.
were in Inverness, Florida yesterday.
I know, right?
I know.
This is a difference.
We live in Inverness, California.
Right. This
I
is
just want to make
Inverness.
sure these not so crazy stories. There's Inverness.
This isn't so crazy.
Florida.
You'll like this story. The Daily Mail has a story of Lori Beiswanger. She was out walking her dog, Hope, little Jack Russell Terrier, 9-year-old Hope. They were out for a walk, and Hope just went out kind of running off on her own and went down by some water, where an alligator grabbed Hope, the dog.
Oh, no.
But
I knew there was an alligator in this story.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Lori, the
Jack
owner.
Russell, that's like, it's like an M&M
like an
for an alligator. Yeah, just a little snack.
Well, the dog began making all this noise. Lori heard what was going on. She saw it. She jumped into the pond and grabbed the alligator, 7-foot alligator. Lori grabbed her with her bare hands, yanked on the tail 3 times, and after the 3rd time yanking on the tail, the alligator released the dog. The dog is going to be okay. Lori is going to be okay. The alligator was captured, and they're going to take it to a sanctuary. So the alligator will be okay, too. So there's a happy ending there.
Pretty brave woman.
Pretty crazy woman, honestly. Like, that's
maternal instinct, man. It kicks in. Got to save your baby.
Yeah, I mean, good for her, but I got to try and think about how much I love my dog. If I'm gonna
I think Baby Bear would be dead,
if I'm
unfortunately.
gonna jump in and wrestle an alligator.
This is like the guy who stopped a shot for the turtle.
That's right. Also in Inverness.
Yeah.
Heroes.
Yeah, that was the story
that
from
was the
Inverness,
other story.
Florida. Yeah.
I'm never going to Inverness, Florida. They wouldn't care about me, but unless I were walking on all fours.
Well, you could just tell them you're a local. Yeah.
No, you have to walk on all
from
fours.
Inverness. Yeah, right.
Be an animal.
That's right. Scary moment on one of the world's largest cruise ships, the Royal Caribbean ship Freedom of the Seas.
Yeah, I saw that.
Caught fire. The ship was pulling into the port of Falmouth, Jamaica at the time of the incident, and the top area of the cruise ship, smoke sort of billowing from the top there. The blaze was put out. The ship is still docked there, and it's going to stay there
It was
until they
all up
figure
the
out
very top of the ship. But
Right.
Boy, it was scary looking.
It was a lot of smoke and a big fire. Bill, I like alcohol, and I like root
Yeah, we
beer.
know that.
And I like root beer.
Uh-huh.
And according to Bloomberg, there's a growing number of breweries that are producing hard root beer. In other words, root beer with an alcoholic tinge to it. Pabst Brewing is making a new beer that is going to be root beer. It's essentially root beer flavored beer. So it's regular root beer that they've sort of fermented to make into alcohol. It could be the next big trend among drinkers.
Why not?
So now you can tell yourself, oh, no, it's just root beer. It's
Yeah.
fine. I can have one.
I'm okay with that.
You got it.
I'll drink it.
All right, hey, I got to tell you, well, here's where I'd like to start today. Just get your take on what's going on. You've probably heard all about it. I mean, Fox is making a great big deal of this. Look, there's like nothing lower, right, in politics than finding some way to exploit a tragedy for political purposes, to make a political football out of a real national tragedy. And also, of course, while you're at it, to find a way to blame it all on President Obama. And the latest, and here's what gets me about the latest. The latest attempt, the latest effort of this is to accuse President Obama of being insensitive, of being just cold and uncaring and callous about the murder of now 5 military officers down in, because another one died, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with this crazy gunman who shot up one military recruit station and then went to another military office and opened fire there as well. And Fox, what gets me is that this is Fox News, right? You haven't heard any of the presidential candidates accuse President Obama of being insensitive about that. You haven't heard Mitt Romney or Mitch McConnell or John Boehner or John McCain or Lindsey Graham. It hasn't been any of the politicians. It's all Fox News. Yeah. We've been watching it here develop on Fox News. And yesterday, it came to the briefing with James Rosen, who was there at the White House covering the briefing for Fox News yesterday, raises the questions about the president's priorities. Doesn't he care more about gays than he does about the military? Dude. That's the translation of the question. Here is how he phrases it, first of all.
A lot of Americans see the President of the United States rushing to make congratulatory phone calls to pro-athletes who come out of the closet, to plaintiffs in same-sex marriage litigation who prevail at the Supreme Court. They see aides here at the White House rushing to swathe the executive mansion in rainbow colors only hours after that same-sex ruling from the Supreme Court. But they also see this President of the United States not reaching out to the family, say, of Catherine Steinle, not reaching out to the families of the 4 service personnel who, in an apparent homeland terrorist attack, were killed at Chattanooga.
I want to be sure I'm correct on that. He says 4, and I think it was 4, but I thought a 5th one had died.
Over the weekend, yes, it was 5 now.
I think it is 5 now, so he was off. But notice again the examples he gives, right? Pro athletes coming out of the closet.
Yeah.
Same-sex marriage after the Supreme Court decision, or the White House being swathed in rainbow colors, right? How can the president make that a priority when he does nothing, he says, for the victims down in Chattanooga? And he continues, don't you have your priorities backwards?
And they might rightly wonder about how the president goes about these kinds of decisions, which families to call, which individuals to call, when flags get lowered. It seems like he might be falling out of touch with the way ordinary Americans view these gestures and his choices in terms of who he bestows them on.
Dude. Falling out of touch with ordinary Americans. Now, what this is triggered by is what they're trying to make a big deal of is that the Congress gave the orders to lower the flags on the United States Capitol a couple of hours before the president gave the orders to lower the flags on the White House.
Right.
That is what they're trying to now blow up, right, into this huge insult, basically, on the part of the president of the United States to the United States military. This is why I could never be press secretary. I cannot say right here on television or on the radio.
Please don't.
I can't tell you the words that I would have called him, and that's what I would have done. Right? I would have just physical violence is not my thing, but man, I can do verbal violence as well as anybody else.
You're the Mike Tyson of verbal violence.
Right, man. And I would have just unleashed, right? But Josh Earnest kept his cool, and he did point out.
And the president spoke to all of you and insisted upon a thorough and prompt investigation. That's what the expectation that I think that the average person has for their president, and that's exactly what the president fulfilled. I'd also note they would expect that the president find an appropriate venue for paying tribute to the service of those Americans. And that's why yesterday the White House announced that the U.S. flag that flies over the White House would be lowered to half staff. It's also why the president gave an extended and moving eulogy, singling out the names and stories of each of the individuals who was lost in that attack in Chattanooga, and doing so before the National Convention of the Veterans of Foreign Wars is an appropriate way to pay respect and to honor their service to the country. I think that's what the American people expect of their president, and I think in this case, the President of the United States delivered.
Bingo.
Yeah. What else do you want?
Right. So the president, maybe he waited a little bit. They waited until he decides he's going to talk to the veterans of foreign wars. This is the opportunity for him to talk about the tragedy that happened in Chattanooga, to honor the memory of all of the victims there who lost their lives, to talk about, as he does so well, each one of them, and to tell their story the same way he did in Charleston, and to announce that he, in their memory, was ordering the flags be lowered on the White House and other federal buildings. And he did that in front of the veterans of foreign wars in Charleston. And yet Fox News is saying, you didn't do it fast enough for us. You didn't do it before Fox and Friends started in the morning. That's when we wanted it. I mean, this stuff is so petty, and it's so mean, and it's so ugly, and it's just strictly, again, I think making a political football out of the murder of those 5 military officers down in Chattanooga. It's disgusting. It's, and it just, to me, again, this is not driven by the politicians. Fox is even outdoing the politicians. The only reason any politician might talk about it is because Fox News has made it their number one issue. Yeah. And then they send this guy to the White House to ask this question, which has clearly been thought out and mapped out by the officials at Fox News, saying, this is what we want to accuse Obama of today.
Pushing their narrative.
Yeah, they'll come up with something else tomorrow. Disgusting. 866-55-PRESS. You know, I hate to beat up on Fox News again, but damn it.
No, you don't.
They deserve it. Join me. 866-55-PRESS. This is just the latest. What do you think of it?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle? Sorry? A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water. We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the Jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the Jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. You know, the dope dealers ain't scared because, you know, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, it's 27 minutes after the hour, bemoaning the latest attempt by Fox News to politicize. You know, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
Where I mean, the president does have a lot on his plate. This reminds me, and so I guess the point I wanted to make there is that they can't rush out and stop everything and bemoan every single time somebody in the country loses his or her life or some accident or some shooting or kind of whatever. But I think this president particularly has demonstrated time and time again that he is a very caring, sensitive president who's very much in touch with this. Look at the eulogy in after Sandy Hook, right? Look at the eulogy. Look at his remarks after Gabby Giffords out in Arizona, right? Look at his remarks in Charleston, for God's sakes. I mean, is a president who really has become, as they say sometimes, like the mourner in chief. And he did that at the VFW convention out in Phoenix, was it?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, right. Honoring the memory of these people. And now Fox News is attacking him because he didn't do it fast enough. I mean, come on. Get back to
this is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court, the same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Thursday, July 23rd. The Bill Press Show. Washington, D.C. is where you find us at our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. You know the Good Machinists Union, the men and women there under President Tom Buffenbarger. Sharpening America's edge on the global economy. You bet they're way out in front on many issues in many important industries, including the aircraft industry. Check out their website at goiam.org. Sorry. Yes, there is other news. The Trump show continues every day. It's Donald Trump. Today it's going to be Donald Trump at the border. You know, there are going to be a lot of stories come out of that. By the way, if we remember Lindsey Graham, who got in the news for one day because he called Donald Trump a jackass, and Donald Trump gave out his phone number, so Lindsey had his day in the sun. If Rick Perry wanted to make news, he would take a page out of Lindsey Graham's book. If Rick Perry really were smart, I think he would go to the border today and bust into the Donald Trump parade.
That would be great.
And say, this is my state. I know this border. I've done more on this border than anybody else. I sent the National Guard down here. You know, boom, 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 boom. Just take them on and say, you're nothing but a bag of hot air. I'm the one who's actually been doing something about the border.
I don't think that Rick Perry has a great stance on the border, but
no, I'm just saying
but he owns that issue in Texas.
And Donald Trump yesterday said he just bought new glasses so people would think he was smart. Right? So Rick Perry could go down there and respond. I think that would be great. Anyway, we'll see what's going to happen. But we don't know what's going to happen at the border yet, other than that he's going. But we do know now how much Donald Trump is worth. Just ask him; he'll tell you. Remember that half of his statement when he announced for president on June 16 or 17 was how much money I'm worth. Right? Well, everybody thought, okay, he says that, but he'll never file his papers as he has to with the Federal Elections Commission, which makes him a real candidate. Because he just won't do it. It's all talk. He won't do it. Well, he did it yesterday. 92 pages. And if you believe Donald Trump, he is worth over $10.5 billion. If you believe Donald Trump. That's a big, big if. But it is amazing the kind of stuff that he puts in there and what we found out. We found out that there are over 500 companies of which he is a trustee, a president, a chairman, or a member of the board. Over 500. And there's a little, by the way, these range from Istanbul to Puerto Rico to Dubai to Atlantic City, right? All over. To L.A. There's a golf course out there. And a new property in Washington, D.C., we are ashamed to say. Of those 500 and some companies, his name is on 391 of them. There is a little ego involved here. Yeah. So you got the Trump Tower, the new Trump Hotel, the Trump Golf Course, the Trump. And by the way, it's a whole range of stuff, right? He's got wineries. There's the skincare products. Let's just look at here for all the different entities.
I was in New York over the weekend.
Yeah.
And you obviously...
Did you stay at the Trump Hotel?
I didn't stay at the Trump Hotel.
What?
But I did see the Trump Tower. And, it's funny. There's a long list of things inside the Trump Tower for you to go visit that they have posted outside. There's the Trump Cafe. There's the Trump Ice Cream Shop. There's the Trump Men's Store. There's the Trump Shop, which is just a shop dedicated to all things Trump, right? It's like the ego on this guy is amazing.
Now, I walked into the lobby of his building there on Fifth Avenue, I think.
Fifth Avenue.
And there's the Trump store. There's a Trump store right in the lobby where you buy Trump ties and Trump stuff. So here it is. It's 92 pages of golf courses, hotels, condos, mattresses.
Trump mattresses?
Yeah.
What is the selling point for that?
Skincare products, perfumes, and wineries. He makes money in so many different ways. A good chunk of his money, it turns out, he makes from golf courses. 15 golf courses he's got in Scotland, Ireland, and up and down the eastern seaboard. He's got one right outside of Washington here, right? He made a lot of money from, get this, from there's a municipal skating rink that he runs for New York City. He made $8.6 million from that skating rink.
What?
I'm telling you, this guy, whatever you say about him, he is a brilliant con man.
Oh, yeah.
Business / con man.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Part of this is business acumen, but a lot of it is just a con.
He earned more than $588,000 from operating a carousel in a New York City park. So he gets the contract for operating these little attractions, right, in these entertainments in these parks. And he's making all kinds of money. And speeches, all right? He gave 3 speeches last year for $450,000 each. I'm telling you, I've been to a Donald Trump speech. I've attended Donald Trump speeches. He says nothing. He never writes a speech. He just gets up and talks.
Oh, my God.
And says absolutely nothing. $450,000. Bill Clinton doesn't get $450,000 for a speech, right? I mean, Donald Trump, unbelievable. He's published 14 books since 1987. There's all of that. He reports $3.4 million in revenue from his Miss Universe beauty pageant. So it goes on and on about it. He also has, if you're that rich, and you have that much on one side of the ledger, you got a lot of stuff on the negative side.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's got his liabilities. He has between $265 million and $450 million, between $265 and $450 million worth of liabilities. He has 12 mortgages total.
Oh my God!
But the big thing is, this is 92 pages of what Donald Trump says he's worth.
That's the key.
And in these papers, it's like they round it off. And so there are 23 assets in these papers that he says are worth over $50 million. Well, first of all, is that true? But over 50 could be 51,
right,
or 500,
right?
It's pretty loose. And so you've got to believe Donald Trump to believe that he's worth $10 billion. And this is a guy, remember Ben Schreckinger from Politico, who was in the studio yesterday, told us that he went to this big Trump thing in Phoenix where the room held maybe 4,000 people, and Donald Trump said there were 11,000 people there.
He's very good at math, apparently, Donald Trump.
And 5,000 standing outside.
Yeah.
And Ben was there, and he said, there's no way, no way.
This gets back to your point about him being a con man.
Exactly. So I think you can, you have to kind of take the $10 billion with a grain of salt. Mary is impressed. She wants some of that money, I think, out in Ouray, Colorado. Hello, Mary. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, what do you think?
I became a fan of Rachel Maddow show, and she had this thing where there's a Donald Trump State Park in New York. I think it's south of New York City, and every so many hundred feet is this sign, Donald Trump State Park. Donald Trump. And it's never been developed. She walked in there. There's no picnic tables. There's no hiking trails. And I thought I understood her to say he got it for like $3 million, but when it came time to go for taxes, somehow it got reevaluated at a very higher rate.
I believe it. And you know what? That's sort of the classic. I didn't see that on Rachel. Rachel is the best, by the way. Good taste by watching the Rachel show. That's his classic way of doing things, right? And here again is a public property. He probably promised to develop it, right, and make it, and improve it for all the residents of that part of New Jersey. Didn't do anything but put his name on it, and then he'll turn around and make money out of it somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah.
Bill, does he have to declare his taxes as well on that form?
Not on this form.
Okay.
No,
I just wondered if he got out of paying much taxes.
You know what? We'll find out, because that is another thing they do have to file before. I'm sorry. They do not have to file. Most candidates do. Some candidates refuse. Remember, Mitt Romney refused for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
The last time he got in trouble about it. So we'll see if Donald Trump files that. But this is the form, the financial disclosure form that they have to file. Why this is important. They had to file this if they were going to qualify for the first debate. And now Donald Trump is in. If he's up in the polls and he's filed this form, he's on stage August 6th. That and more. We'll get Susan Page's take on that coming up next year on the Bill Press Show. Susan Page, USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, here we go on a Thursday, July 23rd. Peter, have you ever been to the museum?
Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah. You know what? Down to the museum, they recognize some of the great journalists of our time, you know, and there are those who excel in print and then those who excel in electronic journalism. There are some who are just stars at both, you know. There are some who are like I can think of somebody who's the bureau chief for the USA Today, but also the host of Capital Download on WUSA 9 on Sunday mornings, frequent guest host of the Diane Rehm Show, and frequent guest on the Bill Press Show.
What can't she do?
Susan Page, my God. Hello, Susan.
Bill, the check is in the mail.
You're the only person I know who works 24/7 at this.
I'm telling you.
Good to talk to you, as always, Susan. How are you?
I'm good, and a happy Thursday morning to you.
Happy Thursday. Having a good summer. I hope the president on a historic trip today, taking off for the continent of Africa.
Interesting, and what a resonance that has, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
His father, you know, the country where his father was from.
His Susan Page, right? Susan Rice, right, came into the briefing yesterday, and this is the 7th time the president has gone to Africa.
Yeah.
He was there 4 times before he was elected president, but to go to to his father's homeland, as you point out. But it's kind of sad. They say for security reasons he won't be able to go to that village where his father grew up, but his family's going to come see him.
Well, and he talked about at the last news conference about how it was more meaningful when before he was president. And he went there and had what was surely a lower key visit than the one he's going to have this time.
That he could walk around, but to have the first African American president address the first president ever to address the African Union, right?
Yeah.
It's just full of history and symbolism. The first president ever to visit Kenya, the first president ever to visit Ethiopia.
Yeah, amazing. And great, isn't it, that Africa, which was once kind of a forgotten continent, no more, and increasingly a place that Americans recognize as having, a beautiful, much beauty, a lot of assets, and a future.
And also, as Susan Rice pointed this out, this is one part of the world, one continent where Republicans and Democrats have all made this a priority. George W. Bush did a tremendous amount of good work in Africa.
Yeah, even George W. Bush's fiercest critics would, I think, acknowledge that what he did when it came to addressing AIDS in Africa was a remarkable achievement and something very praiseworthy.
A different part of the world entirely. We've been talking a lot about Cuba this week with the opening of the embassy here in Havana. Yesterday, toward the end of the briefing, Josh Earnest really dropped a bombshell saying that the administration was in the final stages of drafting a plan to shut down Gitmo.
Amazing.
Yeah. And remember, that was what President Obama promised he was going to do the first year.
Here's the question. Will they be able to do it?
I'm not sure. They should be, but the problem is that the Republicans in Congress, as you know, have blocked bringing any of those prisoners to U.S. prisons, as if our federal prisons are not tough enough, right?
Yeah. Is it a natural consequence of normalizing relations that Cuba eventually will get Guantanamo back?
The entire base?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes. I think the closing the prison is not the main issue anymore. I think it's shutting down the naval base.
Now,
right.
I think that won't happen until we think there's democracy in Cuba. Right?
Yes.
That there'll have to be political progress made in Cuba before that happens. But you could see if there was a Democratic elected government there, on what grounds are we holding that territory?
Correct. It would be right. And also we have to lift the embargo. There are a lot of steps that have to take place getting rid of the embargo for sure. But I think that's down the road. That's the direction we're going in. Now, the president, of course, his main priority continues to be getting approval of the Iran nuclear deal. We know you talked to Senator Ben Cardin, who's going to play a ranking Democrat on foreign affairs, a key role in that. What did he have to say about it?
Well, he wasn't ready to say whether he supported or opposed the deal.
Really?
It's very few Democrats have said, the key Democratic senators have generally not said what they're going to do. We saw Senator Durbin yesterday announcing he was going to support it. He was one of the first to come out. But he did dispute some of the criticisms of the deal. I asked him if they were too eager to get a deal, could they have gotten a better deal?
Yeah.
And he said, it's a tough deal. It's very intrusive inspections. I don't think it's a moment to second guess them. I asked if the 4 Americans being held there improperly should have been part of the deal. No, he said this was a deal about the nuclear arrangement. So I think that the tea leaves seem to be, I thought he had some positive things to say about the deal, but he hasn't endorsed it yet. The first hearings, since the deal was announced, are at Senate Foreign Relations this morning. There are 3 cabinet secretaries are going to be there, Treasury, State, and Energy, to take questions. One thing to remember about this deal is the White House does not need Congress to approve it. Mm-hmm. They just need Congress not to block it. And that just requires 34 votes in the Senate to prevent an override of President Obama's veto. If it comes to that, that seems to me a bar that the White House can meet.
Yeah. In other words, to hold on to enough Democrats to prevent the Senate from overriding his veto.
Now, here's one thing some people will say: should we go into such a landmark deal with the support of no more than 34 or so senators? And the White House would say to that, absolutely.
Of course. You know what? In fact, we heard President Obama in effect say that last week by saying, if the prize is preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon, absolutely, this is a price worth paying.
Right.
It's going to play out. I think it's going to be a strict partisan line vote, but I think you're right. I think the White House holds on, and someday, if the deal is successful, someday people are going to forget. Right, the party's squabbling over it.
I think that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Susan, so great to have you with us as always today. Thank you so much. Have a great long weekend.
Hey, you too, Bill.
All right, Susan Page, USA Today, and of course, Capital Download on WUSA 9 here in the Washington, D.C. area, 8:30 on Sunday mornings.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, as the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Hey, we're just getting started on this Thursday, July 23rd. Jeremy Herb from Politico coming up next at the top of the next hour to bring us up to date on what's really happening with Gitmo. Are they going to be able to shut it down? We'll talk with Fawn Johnson from the National Journal as well about the Highway Trust Fund. It looks like they're going to have a deal to get a highway trust bill for the next 6 years. Coming back with
this
Gitmo.
Is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. Been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance right through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Donald Trump goes to the border. He's going to fix our immigration problems in one day and make Mexico pay for it. Hello, everybody. Oh, what a circus that's going to be. Thursday, July 23rd, it is the Bill Press Show. Yes, indeed. Good to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us on your local progressive talk radio station as we come to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching on Free Speech TV and worldwide. Thanks for watching on our video stream, youtube.com/TalkerTV. You can even watch us down in Kenya and Ethiopia, where President Obama will be heading off later today, a 5-day trip to the continent of Africa. Wherever news is happening, whether it's here in Washington, around the country, or around the globe, we'll tell you what's going on, bring you up to date, and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Enjoy hearing your comments, and we look forward to hearing from you on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy leading up Team Press here this morning.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Hello. You want to call? Give us a call. We encourage your calls, and Jamie Benson is here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And looking at you on Free Speech TV and Talker TV, thanks to our videographer, Cyprian Boulding, off today, still in Paris. Yep. Having a good time, we're told. Monty Kensler here, filling in for Cyprian again today. Yesterday at our White House briefing, big question on Gitmo, and the White House surprising all of us by making an announcement that they're making plans to shut down Gitmo. Is that anything to that? Well, Jeremy Herb from Politico has been on top of that story for a long time, defense reporter, and joins us in studio this morning. Hi, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. We'll get right to that. Meanwhile, I'm not sure about this, but Jimmy Kimmel's got this thing right about it. It's almost an Art Link letter, that old of a trick of going out and asking kids questions and getting kids say the darndest things. Yeah. All right, so Jimmy Kimmel explains what they're going to ask them last night.
Kids don't understand this sort of thing. Kids are very innocent until we pollute their minds.
Yeah.
And in fact, we went on the street today and we asked kids. We asked kids what adultery is.
Oh, you hear the groans. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Like, why, right?
Right.
So you can imagine some of the answers they're going to get.
What is adultery?
To be a movie star.
Do you know anyone who's an adulterer?
Johnny Depp.
What is adultery?
A dog running.
A dog running?
Describe adultery.
It's archery for adults.
What is adultery?
Being an adult.
Being an adult.
What do you think the best part of adultery is?
Getting to drink.
Getting to drink. Yeah,
That may be true.
My favorite is archery for adults. Adultery.
That actually makes more sense.
It kind of does. It can use kid logic.
Yeah, it does indeed. But my question is, why?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I like Kimmel. I think Kimmel's really funny.
I do too. And it's a funny gag usually, but
I don't love this.
Yeah.
And then you have to explain it to the kid after, right?
Exactly.
No, that's it. Right.
Exactly.
What I say, this is like in the Bill Clinton days, right? What's oral sex, Mommy?
Yeah.
Right. No. And every kid would go home and say, Mommy, what is adultery?
What is adultery?
Yeah,
and you tell them the truth. It's archery for adults.
Right. It's learning to drink.
That's right.
Anyhow, so Jeremy's here with us for the first half hour. Fawn Johnson from National Journal and coming in at the half, and then the next hour, Debbie Hines, trial lawyer, legal analyst, will join us to look at this shocking case of Sandra Bland down in Texas. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We go just outside of Philadelphia. There's a man by the name of Tyler Anspach. He's 25 years old, and he has a drinking problem. He had his license suspended after a decade of drunk driver convictions. He had several problems, and well, he found a way, or so he thought, around not having a license. State troopers reported to a call where someone had called in a man riding on a tractor with a box of beer. Turns out it was 25-year-old Tyler. He doesn't have a car, he doesn't have a license, but he did have a tractor. So he's been driving his tractor around town. He got on the tractor with his box full of a case of beer that he was drinking while driving the tractor. Driving a tractor still counts as driving, so
I would hope so.
There you go, another ticket.
Yeah, you can't do it with a tractor, with a lawnmower. No.
Can't do it. Can't do it. How about this fight up in New York between Bill de Blasio and Uber? This has been very, very interesting. We sort of found a little bit of a settlement yesterday as the de Blasio administration has backed away from its fight with Uber. They're going to drop the plan to put a cap on the number of vehicles that Uber has in New York City. That's been the idea that Mayor Bill de Blasio has been pushing for a little while now, is to just limit the number of Uber drivers that they have in New York City. But he's put that on the shelf for now, and both sides have agreed to conduct a 4-month study on the effect of Uber and other for-hire vehicles in New York City and see how that affects traffic. That's been what de Blasio has been pointing to, is the traffic problems. Traffic's already bad enough in New York. You keep adding more and more and more people who don't necessarily know where they're going. If you've ridden into Uber, that it would be bad for traffic.
This has become part of the feud between de Blasio and Cuomo.
Yeah, it sure has. It sure has. And speaking of Jimmy Kimmel, he had Charlize Theron on not so long ago, and she talked about the last time she was on the show. It was with President Barack Obama. He was on the show at the same time, and so they were chatting backstage, and he was saying to her, I might need your help reaching a younger demographic. And she said, nervously, well, then you and I should just go to a strip club. She said she was so embarrassed, she's not sure why she said that. She thought she was maybe thinking that she could give him a little bit of an edge, and she says she likes to go to strip clubs, and so she figured she would just invite the President of the United States. Obama declined the invitation, and Charlize Theron on Jimmy Kimmel said, Michelle Obama is going to kill me. So.
Actually, what he said, you'll have to wait till I'm out of the White House.
Right. Give me just a few more years and we'll be there.
Actually, what he said, you thought I was Bill Clinton? All right, here we go. 14 minutes now after the hour. Yes, indeed. It was the longest briefing, I think, in White House briefing in history yesterday. National Security Advisor Susan Rice started it out by briefing us on the president's trip to Africa. Took a lot of questions about Africa, which is really an historic trip in many, many, many different ways. The first U.S. president to ever go to Kenya, the first U.S. president to go to Ethiopia, the first president to address the African Union, the 7th trip to Africa by Barack Obama. She went through all of that, took a lot of questions on Africa, then took a lot of questions on Iran, and then she left and Josh Earnest took over. That was like another hour. And it was kind of winding down, but toward the end, our friend, she was in last week with us, Molly O'Toole from Defense One, doesn't normally go to the briefing. She was there yesterday, and she pops up with a question about Gitmo.
Obviously, the administration has made clear that they want Guantanamo to be closed. They've made this a priority. Members of Congress have asked for a plan to close Guantanamo. We know that Lisa Monaco and the Defense Secretary have promised that to Senator McCain. Defense Secretary Carter has been speaking about this publicly. Why has the White House been reluctant to acknowledge that they're working on this plan, and why have they cited Congress asking for this plan as a reason to veto the NDAA if, in fact, they want it to be closed?
And then Josh surprised us. He was ready for the question, and he was ready to make an announcement.
Well, let me confirm for you that the administration is, in fact, in the final stages of drafting a plan to safely and responsibly the prison at Guantanamo Bay and to present that plan to Congress. That has been something that our national security officials have been working on for quite some time.
All right. So, Jeremy, you've been looking at this, too. Were you surprised to hear that?
A little bit. Ash Carter, the defense secretary, has talked about this for a while. He's said he's pledged to McCain. They're going to deliver a plan. But McCain's been asking for a plan for a long time from the White House. So the fact that it sounds like they are on board with this could potentially signal some momentum forward in terms of actually getting somewhere towards the hard questions about how you actually close Guantanamo.
So there are 116 prisoners left.
Right.
At one time, there were almost 800 there, right? And of the 116, a good number of them have already been cleared of any charges, right? They're just waiting to find a country that will take them?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's about a little over 50 now still have been cleared for release.
Yeah.
And the issue, of course, is where do you put them?
Right.
There have been restrictions since Obama took office on transferring to the United States or building facilities in the United States that could house them. Presumably, that is going to be part of whatever plan the administration submits. But those people... The White House would like to transfer, to other countries. The problem is the majority of them are from Yemen, and you really can't transfer them to Yemen right now, given the situation. Obama lifted the moratorium on transfers to Yemen in 2013, but they haven't even gone anywhere near actually carrying them out because of all the instability there.
And it was, Josh mentioned yesterday, we're spending $100 million a year on a prison for 116 people?
Well, that's the
half of whom don't belong there?
Yeah, that's the big argument right now is that Gitmo is way too expensive to be a prison for 116 people. You could, do it for a fraction of the cost in a maximum security facility in the U.S., whether it's incorporated in another facility, whether it's a military facility. The issue is there are people there who cannot be released for whatever reason. The U.S. says, they're dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
Also cannot be tried in a court. And so you bring them to the U.S., you have the concern about what rights do they get, what due process rights that they maybe don't have at Guantanamo. Though they do, the Supreme Court has ruled, have some rights even at Guantanamo.
What do you mean they can't be tried? I mean, I know that's what the U.S. government says, but doesn't that sort of contradict the Constitution of the United States?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I think in a lot of cases it's evidence. You get in the standard of evidence, you get how evidence was obtained through interrogations and that sort of thing. I think it varies case by case.
So the government is saying that if they were brought to trial, national security secrets would come out, which would harm.
And the prosecutions may or may not actually be attainable, or convictions, I should say.
Right.
And there are also
so we
people,
might lose, therefore we won't bring them to trial.
Well, and I mean, there's also you look at like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who is in the stages of a very slow trial that is probably still years away. But obviously, you bring him to the U.S. even if he was found not guilty, which I would doubt would happen. But even if he was, it would be hard-pressed to think the U.S. would actually release him.
Right.
We saw this in Canada, where we transferred a detainee to Canada who a judge ordered release, and the Canadian government and the U.S. government kind of on the sidelines pushed the courts to overturn that, and they didn't. They let him be released.
Now, let's talk about transferring these prisoners to the United States. I mean, we did just see this escape, El Chapo in Mexico and the two prisoners up in New York State. But we have federal maximum security prisons here that are pretty foolproof or escape-proof, don't we?
Yeah, that's right, and that's the argument that's made by proponents of closing the prison, is that there is no danger to bringing them to the U.S. because you can put them in a place where they're not going to escape. The argument the other side makes is that wherever you put them, whether it's middle of nowhere Kansas or Illinois or South Carolina, it becomes a terror target. That town then becomes a terror target.
But we have some pretty hardcore prisoners in these federal prisons.
And terrorism prisoners, too. The administration likes to point out they have had many more convictions through the federal court system on terrorism charges than they have at Guantanamo. And every detainee that the U.S. has captured, every terrorism detainee they've captured, they have eventually brought to a federal prison and not sent any new ones to Guantanamo.
Right. So this plan will go to Congress. Now, Congress has blocked bringing any of these prisoners to the United States. Republicans in Congress have. Are they having second thoughts? Is there any chance this plan will get through Congress?
So the X factor here is John McCain. He, is now chairman of the Armed Services Committee this year. And remember, back in 2008, both he and Obama supported closing the prison. And what McCain has said is he wanted to work with the administration, the White House, and they never came to him with anything. So now that he's chairman, he inserted a provision in his version of the Defense Authorization Act, which is a must-pass bill, passes every year, and they're hashing out the final bill between the House and Senate right now that requires this plan, which is part of the forcing mechanism. If Congress approves this plan, and that is a big if, the bill would release the restrictions on transfers to the U.S., on building facilities in the U.S. The House doesn't have any of that, and the House actually toughens the restrictions on sending them to foreign countries. So we don't even know if McCain's provision is going to get into the final bill. But if it gets into the final bill, and if the White House submits a plan, and if Congress approves it, you could see this movement.
We could see something.
It's a lot of ifs.
A lot of ifs there. As many ifs about that plan as about Donald Trump's financial statements, I think. Is this so do you think Gitmo is going to happen? It certainly should happen. 866-55-PRESS. We'll continue with Jeremy Hurd. We'll come back after the break.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea,
battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour, Fawn Johnson from National Journal joining us at the half hour right now with Jeremy Herb from Politico on Gitmo. So if they're successful, well, that's a big if, as we pointed out, in closing the prison at Guantanamo, certainly just to save money, we ought to do so, in my humble opinion. What about the naval base itself? I mean, we're normalizing relations with Cuba. We're going to be doing business with them. They're going to be our friends now. We have this naval base in their front yard. I mean, is that on its way out as well?
Well, probably not. Cuba actually has said that is something they want back.
I know.
As we've started this whole normalization. I was down there in May,
and I heard a lot about it.
Yeah. And I'm sure
not the prison, about the base.
That's interesting. But the Pentagon has said they have no interest, no plans, or anything like that.
Why do we need a naval base in?
It's a fair question. But you also think about
how many do we have in Florida?
We have plenty in Florida too, but we have bases all over the world. Obviously,
too many.
It was much more of a strategic issue, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, Cuban Missile Crisis, and all of that. But it's been down there. It's the birthplace of the prison at Guantanamo Bay, and I don't see the Pentagon changing its stance on that for probably many years.
There's certainly some steps to go through. I mean, we have to lift the embargo first, right? I'm sure until Cuba takes some steps toward a democratic form of government, it would never happen. But at some point, it just seems to me that closing that base, plus a lot of others. But look, everybody thought we were going to bring all of our troops home from Europe after World War II, right?
Oh yeah, we still have thousands of troops in Korea. We have bases in Japan. We really do have bases all over the world. Cuba, of course, is just in our backyard, which makes it different than maybe some of those Pacific and European bases.
There's nothing you can do. Here I am talking like I'm a military planner, but there's nothing you can do from Guantanamo that you couldn't do from a base in the United States. It's actually 90 miles, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You move it to South Carolina, Peter.
Bring it.
You got enough in South Carolina.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for coming in.
Thanks
Keeping
for
track
having
of this. All right. We'll be right back. Fawn
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
Crime Advisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry. Hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, it is the Bill Press Show here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, on a Thursday, July 23, and brought to you today by the National Education Association. We salute the teachers of America and their great president, Lily Eskelsen Garcia, members of the NEA. And we thank them for their support of the program. Check out their website at NEA.org. My God, it looks like the Congress might actually get something done before they break for their August recess. At least they're working hard at it, unlike a lot of issues they just ignore, and that is the Highway Trust Fund, which runs out of money at the end of the month. Fawn Johnson's been covering this issue as well as a lot of others for National Journal. A neighbor here on Capitol Hill joins us in studio. Hello, Fawn.
Hello.
Always good to see you.
Happy to be here,
You
as always.
Having a good summer?
I am. I'm having a crazy summer, but it's all good.
Crazy's good.
Crazy's good.
Crazy.
Yeah, good. So are we going to get a highway bill?
Well,
first of all, what is the need for this? I mean, if the funding runs out, so what would that mean if the funding were to run out?
Let me just back up a little and explain what we're doing here. The Highway Trust Fund is a pot of money that was set up 50 years ago under Eisenhower administration. It is paid for largely through gas tax, a federal gas tax, 18.4 cents a gallon, I believe, and it hasn't changed in probably 30 years. But that goes into this dedicated fund that is then distributed to the states for highways, for transit, rail lines, for runways, for bridges, for maintenance, and for construction, and
all that. Infrastructure,
right? Yes. And so the highway bill does two things. It sets policy, and it also authorizes the government to send the money to the states. But the other thing that it has had to do over the last 5 years is add more money than what the gas tax goes into, because it doesn't provide quite enough to actually keep the roads maintained, partly because we're driving more fuel efficient cars, and partly just because the maintenance, the roads are getting older. Mm-hmm. So I think the last figure I looked at was something like $70 billion over the last 5 years of other taxpayer money has had to go into the Highway Trust Fund
to keep it going. So
right now we're in a situation where the actual authority to distribute money ends in the next couple of weeks. On July 31st, and the trust fund is dipping dangerously low. It's to the point where they won't have any money in it anyway. And what that means is that essentially the government is going to have to, the federal government is going to have to cut back on money that the states have already planned for projects. So we're talking job losses. We're talking, halting of construction projects in the height of the construction season. It's a big problem.
And we're talking less safe roads, right? I mean,
exactly.
Roads that are not maintained, bridges that are not maintained, tunnels, and all that kind of stuff. Right?
So it's really, it is something that, that they really do have to resolve this issue before they break for the August recess. And I think they will. They've got a couple of options on the table, but they're kind of fighting about their various options right now.
I remember the days when, it wasn't that long ago, like the Farm Bill, the Highway Trust Fund Bill, that was just something that always...
It's very bipartisan. Yeah, and it's also...
And it was always bipartisan, and it was like 5 years at a time or something like that. But it would just do it. Nobody would question the fact that they would... The idea that you would fail to pass a highway bill was unthinkable.
Yeah, and that has been the case, actually, even so the last really long-term highway bill was in 2005. But this is before, our fiscal crisis. This is when they still allowed earmarks, special projects that are delivered. And it was before they required that every piece of legislation have to be paid for. Mm-hmm. So since then...
And I might add, it's before the Tea Party.
Right, before the Tea Party. So this is kind of old-style government that we're hearkening back to when we're looking at what they're doing now, but without the same tools. We don't have the budget. We don't have a surplus. We don't have earmarks to buy off votes. We don't have a way to just go ahead and tap the federal treasury regularly without having some other offset. So these are huge hurdles that weren't there before, which is one of the reasons why it's such an issue. It's actually still the case that Republicans and Democrats all agree that they need to pass something. They just have a hard time figuring out how to pay for it, and they disagree about that. And then the House and the Senate have different ideas about what they should do, and the leaders of the House and the Senate get a little up in their craw when one or the other tries to dictate what they do, so there's a little bit of that going on.
The play seems to be in the Senate right now. Is that it? So the House is waiting for the Senate.
Well, the House has actually passed a five-month extension. It goes till December 18th. It's meant to be a patch. Nobody likes these, but Paul Ryan, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, has this idea that has actually similar ideas have been floated by the administration and by other Democrats. He wants to tinker with the international tax scheme such that businesses, American businesses that have their businesses overseas. So my best example is the Starbucks in London. The Starbucks in London can take the profits that it makes in London and bring them back into the United States without having to pay extra taxes. Some taxes, but not as much as they normally would. So that actually would raise some money. and it would raise money for a long-term bill, and it would solve an international tax. It's a problem that everybody understands. So this is what Paul Ryan wants to do. But he says he can't do it in a week and a half, so he wants until December to be able to do it. The House has already passed that as a bill, so that is one option. But members of the Senate, particularly Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, and other members of the Finance Committee and tax writers are worried that if you tinker with the international tax scheme without doing anything else, you're going to ruin the chances for broader tax reform, because that international tax code is a huge way of offsetting some of the other things they want to do on taxes, and tax reform is a big issue, and so they don't want to mess up those chances. So they're coming up with a whole bunch of other ways. They've got a 3-year bill that they just passed. Well, they made it past their first hurdle last night in the Senate. So,
well, back to this 5-month idea. This is the problem with Congress. I mean, it's classic, right?
Exactly.
The kick
People are really sick of it
for 3 months or for 2 months. I mean, you can't run a business that way. You can't run a marriage that way. But the idea, particularly when it comes to designing roads, building roads, making the plans for getting the contractors lined up and getting, I mean, how could you, states have to know or more than...
Right. And that's what states have been saying. They've already cut back on their projects because they don't know exactly how long they have to plan. And it's very difficult. And everybody understands this.
Where these new constructions, like for roads, or where you'll see signs, that they're going to... I'm just trying to think of some of the roads around here.
We have a water project that's going on,
or whatever they did, right? And
it's going to take a year, on my street. But the thing is, and that's probably that money has to, in order to even plan that, the money has to be obligated. It has to be right. You have to be able to plan that you can have that money available. So states are really, and the transportation officials have been complaining about this for years.
You can't say, well, we're going to we just decided we're going to build a new freeway, and we're going to build, another 10 miles of the freeway, and we're going to build it this summer, and not with no plans in place. And
it's really and so
it's insane.
The problem is that the Senate has come up with a 3-year bill. I mean, they actually have a 6-year bill, but they've paid for 3 years of it. But the way that they have come up with it is just really insane. I mean, they are talking about, I think some of the money comes from not allowing people who have warrants for their arrest to collect Social Security. There's another provision tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is the thing from the 70s. But that there's other people who are looking at that for other things to pay for. There's a provision that cuts down on the dividends that banks get from the Federal Reserve. This is all just
ridiculous. Yeah,
I mean, I didn't think
the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That's so funny. It's that chestnut. They always roll that chestnut.
Yeah.
Usually when gas prices go really high, right? That the president has to release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It's like the magic cure.
Right.
The people who don't know anything.
And it's also become Congress's new ATM. That's how you pay for everything. There's at least 3 bills that I know of right now that have something about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to pay for them, right? Including the highway bill that the Senate passed. So
ridiculous.
Anyway, I mean, they will resolve it, I think, by next week. The only question is, will the Senate win or will the House win? And
so it's either going to be a 5-month extension or maybe
a 3-year bill. Yeah.
Or a 3-year bill. And to show you how crazy this is, well, when we come back, let's talk more about this, the politics of it, because this is something where it looks like President Obama and Mitch McConnell, just like the trade bill, it might be on the same side.
Yeah, maybe.
And then, then you've got probably one of the most liberal senators, certainly, and one of the craziest and most conservative Republican senators are the co-authors of this bill.
Yeah.
So, my God. Fawn Johnson, she's figured it all out here for National Journal. Your questions, your comments, 866-55-PRESS. Give us a call. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Hi, this is Congressman Steve Israel, and I want to wish Bill Press a happy 10th anniversary.
Well, how about that, Congressman Steve Israel? We thank you. We thank you. Fawn Johnson here from National Journal in studio with us talking about the Highway Trust Fund. And the co-authors in the Senate, Barbara Boxer and Jim Inhofe.
I know. What an unlikely pair.
Politics.
They disagree on everything.
Oh, totally.
Everything
Totally.
but this one issue.
Right.
But they are very, and Jim Inhofe is great on this stuff. I mean, if he was to come into your studio right now and you were to tell him all the things that you told me about, repairing the roads and this is all ridiculous, he would agree with you 100%. He has no patience for this idea that you have to go find offsets elsewhere. He just says the economy is. This is what the base of our economy is the jobs stay here, the infrastructure stays here, commerce flows better.
To be able to move stuff.
Which is really, I love talking to him about it because he's just so, I mean, he's unashamed of everything that he believes in.
But the way politics used to work, that wasn't all bad. They got things.
Exactly.
They got things.
And that's what he would tell you.
I'm telling you. And Newt Gingrich and the Tea Party have destroyed it. Don is calling from western Wisconsin. Hello, Don.
Hello. Just quick comment.
Yeah.
I had heard that it costs $3 trillion to fix our infrastructure, including fast rail, et cetera. And if you really look at the transportation bill, that doesn't even come close to even paying a down payment. What I would suggest is cut the $500 billion in corporate entitlements and put it into a 5-year plan to fix our infrastructure instead of coming after my Social Security disability, which is insurance and not an entitlement.
Well said, Don. Yeah. Probably, I'm sure that his point is right.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that President Obama would agree with you, including the $500 billion figure.
Yeah.
The president's plan, actually, that he sent to Congress, not paid for, was $470+ billion. And the caller's also right that one of the pay-fors that they have in this Senate bill is not paying Social Security to people who get disability, which is unacceptable to Democrats. Probably won't happen. Just so the caller knows this. But yeah, and $3 trillion isn't off either in terms of if we really want to grow the infrastructure and make it look like China, it would take probably about that much.
Yeah, right, exactly. Fix what we've got and then invest in the future, right? And why shouldn't we look like China and Japan and France? And
if you had Jim Inhofe, this total conservative from Oklahoma, right?
Yes.
In the studio, he would agree wholeheartedly with our caller. So
glad he's right about something. Yeah. Robinson is out on the West Coast, West Lynn, Oregon. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, what's up?
Top of the day. What a great way to start the day.
Damn right it is. Thank you.
Right. In a good mood.
Go ahead, Robinson.
Senator Inhofe has a serious problem in eastern Oklahoma, and let me address it this way. We not only need, as a people and in Congress and the president, need to address where the money's going to come from for infrastructure, but what's wrong with the way we're spending on infrastructure now. At present, and bear with me, I'm a progressive, but this is a libertarian argument.
Okay,
truckers only pay 50 to 80% of what they need to be paying to maintain the roads and bridges.
Truckers,
yeah. Okay, so the caller, and this is one of those down in the weeds issues that becomes a real tug of war between the trucking association and the highway builders. Trucks are heavy. Trucks are long. They take up space on the highway, and they also because they're heavy, they cause more damage to the highways. So the gas tax. I mean, the diesel tax is a little different. The trucking tax, and they pay a little bit more into the highway trust fund because of this. But there's always jockeying about the formula that goes on.
Are they paying their fair share?
That's an open question. They would argue that they're paying their fair share because they're also contributing to the economy and other things. But then there are others who, especially anybody who is pro infrastructure, pro environment. Some of the progressives and also probably some of the libertarian types would argue that they're not paying enough. So this is not going to sink a highway bill, but it is an ongoing struggle. And Coller's probably right that you need that would be one way to boost up the to pay for it a little bit.
Isn't it sort of ironic that that maybe there's a clash of policies here, that on the one hand we really want more fuel efficient cars, and yet one of the results of having more fuel efficient cars is we don't get as much money in gas tax revenue, so we can't keep up the infrastructure.
And they're
you
actually
can't win for losing.
There is a solution to this but it's going to take a while to put together. But I think that this is where we're going in the end. It's moving away from the gas tax and having drivers pay for roads on a thing that they call vehicle miles traveled.
Yes, exactly. Right.
But we're not there yet. And part of the goal that the Senate is trying to come up with in having a longer term bill is to give members time to try and phase that in. There's already a program. There's a pilot program in Oregon that's going really well.
That's right. In Oregon, yeah.
But it is. I mean, there's some kinks that have to be worked out. A lot of it has to do with privacy. Do we do a GPS? Do we do it with the miles that you travel? How do you is it fair? What about people in rural states who travel farther? What about people in cities who clog up the highways?
Mm-hmm.
Because like around here, it takes me a half hour to drive 5 miles. So there's a lot of kinks still to be worked out, but that is where we are heading eventually.
All right. So just wrapping up, you think we will have a highway trust fund? You think there's
something will happen?
Something before the end of the month?
They have not yet let it lapse. They've come close every time, but they haven't let it lapse. And they have a solution in hand. The House has already passed something. a lot of the things that a lot of the pay-fors that the House approved are also something the Senate is dealing with. So they could, in theory, they could pass it until December and then fight until December and then figure it out.
Let's just hope that for once that they do something that lasts more than a week or something, or even more than 5 months. Hey,
one can only hope.
Thank you so much. Great to see you. All right, good stuff. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, moving into hour number 3. By now, we have all seen that very, very disturbing video from Texas of young Sandra Bland being stopped by a state trooper, hauled out of her car, thrown to the ground, thrown in a jail cell where allegedly she then, a young woman just getting a new job, very at the top of her life, allegedly committed suicide. I don't believe it. Debbie Hines will join us to talk all about it. And then we're going to take a little break, have a little snack, some cookies this early in the morning. You bet. Coming up on hour number 3.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Big day for President Obama down at the White House. He will spend most of the day prepping and with meetings and getting ready for his big trip tonight. He gets a daily briefing at the 3:15 and then at 8 o'clock tonight. After dinner with the First Lady and the First Daughters, he will head out to Andrews Air Force Base, taking off from there at 8:20 to Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, and then from there down to Kenya. First United States president to visit that country, and then he goes on to Ethiopia from there. We have our press briefing today with Josh Earnest at 12:30, which I'm sure will be like yesterday, a lot of it talking about what is on the president's agenda. A big issue now in Kenya. The people, some of the politicians in Kenya are saying, whatever you do, don't you dare talk about gay rights when you come to Kenya. And Susan Rice said yesterday, that's an important issue to the president, and he'll talk about it wherever the hell he wants to. We'll be back
This
another hour
is
coming
the
up.
Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all. and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The Trump Show rolls on today to the border. Yes, indeed. And you know what? Those other Republican candidates might as well just take the day off because they're not going to get any attention. It's all going to be Donald Trump at the border. You got it. Hello, everybody. Thursday, July 23rd. How about it? Welcome to the Bill Press Show, and good to see you today. We're glad you're with us on your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast. We're glad to see you on Free Speech TV nationwide, and glad to see you worldwide on our video stream, Talker TV. That's nice. Cyprian Bolding can go on vacation and watch us from Paris. I mean, there you go.
He's watching us from Paris, by the way. He did send another text to let us know that he was up and watching it.
Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. So there it is. When you travel, no matter where you go, like President Obama going to Kenya today, right? Take your iPhone, take your laptop, take your iPad, and watch us on youtube.com/Talker TV.
Although, look, I'll say what we've said all week. Cyprian, take a day off, man. You don't have to watch us every day. You're in Paris.
We're not going to give you a quiz when you come back.
Look, I know we do an entertaining show, but there are probably more fun things to do in Paris than sit and watch this show.
There are.
Yeah. You know?
I can tell you. All right. Here we go. What a crowd today. The team here led by the aforeheard Peter Ugburn.
Hi there.
He doesn't wait until he's introduced.
No, of course not. Why?
Children are supposed to be seen, not heard. You know? Peter Ugburn and Elisa Murphy, Team Press here. With Jamie Benson for your to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And while Cyprian's playing in Paris, Monty Kanzler here as our videographer. And our good friend Debbie Hines, a trial lawyer on our own and a legal analyst, here in studio with us again today. Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you.
Hi, Bill. Great to see you.
This is a historic day for the president because he is going off on a big trip to Africa and to the homeland of his father, to Kenya. He was not born there, but his father was.
Let's make that clear.
Yes. He talked a little bit yesterday about this is a trip's got a lot of meaning for him.
I will also have the honor of being the first U.S. president to address the African Union.
Mm-hmm. And on to his comments about Kenya. Right?
I will be going to my father's home country of Kenya and we will be going to Ethiopia as well.
And in Kenya, because of security reasons, he won't be able to go to his father's village, but they said the family's coming to see him.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. We don't know whether his grandmother's going to get to cook that meal. She said she was going to cook for him. But, yeah. But, as a senator, he was able to go to that village. As a president of the United States.
More complicated.
Much more complicated. But significant, Debbie, isn't it? Here's our first African-American president who becomes the first American president to address the African Union and to go to Kenya and to go to Ethiopia.
Exactly. And, it's a whole world there that's been overlooked in many respects for many reasons in America. And so it's just great that President Obama is making this historic step and going forward and recognizing Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His 7th visit, by the way, to the continent, 3 as president of the United States. Susan Rice said, other presidents have done. Bill Clinton did a lot for Africa. So did George W. Bush, particularly for AIDS. Gets a lot of credit for that. And Susan Rice gave them all credit yesterday, our national security advisor. But she told us at the briefing that she's sure that when the Obama administration is over, that he will have done as much, if not more, than any other president to really strengthen the ties between the United States and Africa and provide as much help there as we can. So that trip starts tonight. Debbie Hines here with us for the first half hour, and then at the half, we like to do this on Thursday or almost any day of the week. Kick back at the end. Brandon Byrd, who is the owner of a great little local business here called Goody's Frozen Custard and Treats food truck, is going to roll by, and God knows what he's going to unload today.
I'll eat whatever he brings. He's got good stuff.
Exactly. So we'll get right into it with Debbie, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We go to Jupiter, Florida, where a Twitter user, who we don't know her real name, but she goes by the name on Twitter, Rosa Sparks.
Uh-oh.
I don't think that's her real name. But she tweeted over the weekend, somebody bring me some weed. I'll pay for it.
Where's she live?
She lives in Jupiter, Florida.
Oh.
Well, it didn't take long for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office to spot this tweet, and they immediately retweeted it and said, "Where should we meet you?" That tweet has now gotten about 54,000 retweets. Mm-hmm. She did not respond to where she was, so that they could come and find her. But look, if you go on Twitter and you ask for weed, always remember people are watching, so be careful. We talked yesterday, Lindsey Graham had his cell phone number given out by Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham recorded a little video yesterday destroying a couple of cell phones, showing how you get rid of your cell phone. He actually, speaking of Twitter, got a tweet from Sprint. Said Lindsey Graham, when you destroy a phone, you go all in. Let us get you a new number and the best plan in wireless. Lindsey Graham responded, said, I'll be fine, but would you consider donating a phone and a plan to a veteran instead? Sprint responded late last night, great idea. We could definitely give back to those who give so much. Consider it done. So stay tuned. We'll find out how they're going to do that, but they're going to give a plan and a phone to a veteran instead of Lindsey Graham. Not bad, huh?
Lindsey Graham, he's getting more mileage
out of that phone.
Yeah, right.
Love it. There's a small price to pay to have to change your phone number to get this kind of exposure.
He's going to be on Morning Joe this morning in a few minutes. Nobody would be talking about Lindsey Graham if it weren't for Donald Trump giving away his phone number.
Yeah. And the Oxbow Brewing Company is serving up quite an interesting idea. It's summertime. There's nothing better than cold beer and some lobster in the summer, right? Well,
sounds good to me.
Well, they're putting both of those things together into a beer. It is beer that has been brewed with live Maine lobsters and a dash of sea salt. Now, what they did is the lobsters were placed in a mesh bag and dropped into a kettle full of boiling wort that you use to make the beer. And the lobsters add a little brininess, and they say also sweetness to the beer. It's a Saison-style beer. And you can get it in their tasting room in Portland, Maine. Which, by the way, Jamie Benson is going to be in Portland, Maine here next week. I fully anticipate a full report of how this beer tastes.
Well, we'll wait for Jamie's report, but I said is to give me my lobster over here and give me my beer over here.
I ain't drinking
I'll pass on the lobster beer.
I ain't going to drink a lobster beer.
Who's going to eat those lobsters is a real question.
By the way, they did point out that what they did is after they took the lobsters out that they used, that they cooked, that they ate the lobsters there in the brewery. So it's not like they just threw them away.
Forget it. It won't. I don't think it'll sell either. Okay. Thank you, Peter. So, Debbie, I got to ask you about this very, very troubling incident down in Texas with the arrest and then the alleged suicide of this young woman, Sandra Bland. We've all seen the video now over and over again, and more of it came out yesterday. I mean, is this a case? Did this trooper really go over the line? Looks like it to me.
Oh, he definitely went over the top, and that's why he's on administrative leave. Even his own department knows that he went over the top and did not follow protocol.
So she changed lanes. He's in back of her, right? And she changes lanes to get out of his way without putting her turn signal on.
Right.
And she's dead because of that. I mean,
that is the most bizarre thing. And honestly, but what it really tells us, and this is the scary part, is that if you are African American, an African American woman, I mean, you can die for any reason at any time at the hands of the police in America. And that's a sad commentary on where we're at.
I think we should get to in a little while the point of like whether or not it's even possible that she did kill herself in the position that she was in. But the pulling over and the arrest and the putting in jail, all because of what?
So
she didn't use her blinker?
He says, "I need your ID." Right? Well, you didn't. So he gets the ID, goes back to his car for 5 minutes, writes up a citation, then walks back to the car, and then says, "Put out your cigarette." And she says, "I've got a right to smoke a cigarette in my own car," which she does.
You do, right? You can smoke a cigarette in your car.
But what he says before that, which is what started the whole thing, he's coming to give her the citation or the warning or whatever it is, and he says, "Oh, you look a little irritated."
Yeah.
And she explains to him why she's irritated, I think, as anyone would be.
Right.
I was trying to politely get over to let you pass, and then I get stopped and pulled over for this incident. And that just took on a life of its own
then
that
he
it
says,
should
"Put
not
out your
have."
cigarette. And she said, "I got a right to smoke a cigarette," which she does.
Which she does.
And then he says, "Get out of the car." And she says, "Wait a minute," right? And then he pulls out the taser. "I'm going to light you up."
And then she's like, "Well, I'll get out the car."
And she gets out of the car. And then he throws her on the ground. I mean, to me, this is one more case, right? After Michael Brown and
Eric Garner and all the ones we can't even lose the sight of the names of the ones that we do know of.
Yeah, down in North Charleston, on and on. I mean, just cops being just out of control. You know?
Where did we go from? I mean, this also reminded me at the point of the incident of the McKinney, Texas incident. Where do we get from, white cops can, stop black women and then put their foot on the back of them while they're on the ground? I mean, this is not the 1950s. This is not the 60s. I thought those times were over, but we're seeing that they are not.
So so then they put her in this cell. And by the way, let's go back. This is a young woman. She's what, 23?
28.
28, okay. Mm-hmm. She just gets a new job.
Yes.
Right? I mean, basically on top of the world.
Exactly.
Now, and so she's in her jail cell, and she makes one telephone call, I guess, right, to a friend. I mean, pick it up from there.
I think she made a couple. I mean, I think that I don't think she was in any way prohibited from making telephone calls.
She committed suicide with a plastic liner like this from her trash can?
Right.
I don't believe it for a
second. And, the interesting thing is, though, they're making up things. I think it's showing that the police down there, at least the jailhouse people, are making up things as they go along, because what they're saying is that, we noted that there was a prior attempted suicide on her behalf. Mm-hmm. Well, if that were so, why was there anything in her jail cell that would have caused her to to attempt to take her life?
Or why didn't they keep a closer watch on her?
Exactly. Right. So that alone, beknownst to them, that's reason for a wrongful death civil action against them.
What's the deal with the videotape? Because there have been some allegations that the videotape that the police have released
was
looks
edited,
awfully doctored, looks awfully edited.
Well, of course, they're saying that it hasn't. It really shouldn't have been released. They're saying they now have the full thing. That's something about when they took it out of the system to upload it, that it lost something or another in the translation. But if that were the case, and they really should not have, presented it out to the public, because once it's pointed out to everyone where the edited parts are, it's almost humorous. You can see, oh yeah, that's edited. That's the same car that's coming again, and now it's in the frame again. So there clearly was something done with the tape.
So for the most part, no charges have been filed against any of these officers. I was just remembering now, including the officers out in Cleveland, Ohio, who shot the little Tamir Rice. Will any charges, do you think, be filed against this officer in Texas? Where are we on that?
You know, I mean, honestly, I think of all the recent cases, this one would be the most difficult to actually prosecute. And I think that's why the Waller County DA is saying that, oh, we're going to put it before a grand jury in August. That's sounding very nice to everyone. But this, of all the cases that we've heard...
Not to me, after what we saw with the grand jury in Ferguson, Missouri.
No, but this, of all the cases, needs a lot of investigation. I mean, Eric Garner's case didn't really need investigation. It was on video. You saw it. There was an autopsy that said it was a homicide. Oh, well, they didn't get us anywhere. But this case, and all the facts of the case are on video and in the witnesses that are the jailhouse people that are either in jail, if there were others, as well as the people that were the employees of the jail. So this really requires a lot of investigation, a lot of interviewing those people over and over and over again, looking at whatever the video is, and then also obviously getting a second, if there hasn't already been one done, a second independent autopsy report. So this case, it really should not be on the fast track because there is so much investigation.
And Loretta Lynch yesterday saying that the FBI is monitoring. It's a local investigation, but the FBI is keeping very close to it.
Exactly.
So we'll see whether the DOJ would ever get involved in DOJ would get involved in that at all. And meanwhile, Bill Cosby's attorney speaking out for the first time yesterday since the latest news, and they say that their man is being wrongly accused, and the media is misrepresenting what he said in his deposition. Debbie Hines is with us, our legal analyst. We'll be right back. Your call's welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we are with Debbie Hines, trial lawyer and legal analyst. And Debbie, we were talking about Sandra Bland. Let's say a quick hello to Tony out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hello, Tony.
Hey, how are you?
Good. What's up?
Great. Good. And thank you guys for keeping this story alive. I just wanted to say Sandra was in no way, shape, or form some depressed person. I don't see how anyone can take from all these videos the fact that she had the courage to even stand up to this guy. And then, you know, how do you go from that to being some depressed person killing yourself? It doesn't make any sense. It stinks to high heaven.
You knew her?
We were friends on Facebook. We're in the same sorority. You know, she's interacted with me before that way, you know, so I didn't personally know her, but, you know, we have, you know, spoken or whatever in that sense on Facebook. Yeah. And if you follow her videos, you'll see that she was very outspoken about police brutality and the whole Black Lives Matter type thing. So if you know, watch her and not do what some of the media has done by pulling out one video when she was having a kind of down day and trying to take that to portray like she was a depressed person is insane.
All right, Tony, thank you so much for your call. You know, when you, from what I've seen of family members and friends like Tony, people who did know her in some way, they said it's just impossible what
And then the
police
odds
are trying to say.
Exactly. And then the odds are against that, too, because the statistics are that of suicide, 70% are committed by white men, and with total blacks, black men and women, it's less than 5%. So, yes.
Is that right?
It is something that African Americans generally do not take their own lives.
Right.
So that also buttresses the fact that it is highly unlikely that this young woman took her life ready to start a new job, groceries ready to go, you know, to her new place. It's just not likely.
Man, well, I hope we get to the bottom of this. But again, very disturbing, and one more incident on top of some of the others that we've been talking about for the last few months. Debbie, it's so good of you to take the time to come in and see us this morning. Okay, thank you again. And we never did get to Bill Cosby. We'll talk about it. That's not going to go away.
He'll be around.
We'll
He'll
have
be around.
time to talk about it. And we're going back with a little great snack for a
This
Thursday morning.
is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
You bet it is. Good morning on at 33 minutes after the hour. Thursday, July 23rd. The Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the Teachers Union at AFT, doing a great job in the classrooms of America, making a difference every day under President Randy Weingarten. We salute them for their great work and thank them for their support of the program. You can find out more about their good work at AFT, the latest in all in education issues in this country at aft.org. I don't know, you know, even this early in the morning, if you're feeling a little hungry, feeling ready for a little snack, you can't do better If you're in the Washington, D.C. area, at any rate, then hooking up with Gigi, great food truck owned by Goodies Frozen Custard and Treats. Brandon Byrd is the founder and owner of Goodies and joins us again in studio. Brandon, it's good to see you again.
Yes, it's likewise, and I appreciate having us back.
Welcome back. You were here before with some frozen custard and the
cobblers.
Cobblers,
yeah,
that's right. The cobbler. Oh, the peach cobbler. Yeah. Oh man.
Can't forget about the peach cobbler.
Asking you how early you got up to prepare those that day, and you're back today with cookies. All right. Man, what do you got for us?
So today I made you guys chocolate chip cookies with pecans. They're actually triple chocolate. And I'm spoiling you guys a bit.
By the way, you get bonus points for saying pecan right.
I'm a Southern boy.
That's right. For anybody who ever questions whether or not it's pecan or pecan or pecan, it's pecan, like recon.
Right? Pecan.
Never forget.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying, soda or pop. I mean, I think it's really a regional thing, but being a Southerner at heart. Hey, we
pecan.
You're looking really sharp today. I like that bow tie.
Thank you.
I like that look with that, kind of whatever.
It's kind of like a little pink blush, salmon, something like that. No, thank you. I mean, this is definitely, in uniform. So, every day we're on the truck at the soda bar at National Harbor. Bow ties and button-ups and newsboy caps.
Yeah, and so we got the truck, Gigi, the food truck, and then the Goodies Frozen Custard and Treat soda bar at the National Harbor.
Correct.
Across the river here. How do you figure out, well, I'm not going to, can I have a cookie?
Oh, yeah, no, please, that's for you guys, so okay. Indulge.
Thank you. I'll indulge while we're talking.
By the way, I think this is really cool that you brought in the replica of the truck, because if you ever see Goodies out on the street, I mean, it's hard to miss, right? Because it's an old school, really cool treats truck. And there's music playing, and I mean, the kids and I we found you guys a couple times.
Yep.
It's a really, really cool experience.
I love the whole food truck universe, right?
Yep.
And it's just getting better and better and better in every way. How do you decide where to go?
Yeah, well, so part of it is DC sides. The DC government decides for us. Recently, about a year ago, they passed new food truck regulations where there's a lottery system to be in, let's say, the high traffic areas, Union Station, LaFont Plaza, Farragut. Myself and some of the other really, good trucks, we're kind of rogue truckers, and we kind of create our own new food truck hubs or, courts or whatever you like to call them. So some of it is part DC government in the lottery system, and then the other part is, we'll collaborate with another, let's say, a barbecue truck or, a folk truck, and, kind of just coordinate, schedules that way and, target, area that we feel has potential.
Oh my God, this cookie, by the way.
That is
Did you ever buy that cookie?
Are you kidding?
How good is that?
Are they still warm? I just want
they are. They're still warm.
Okay, good.
Look at Jamie and Elisa craning to try and get one. You'll get one.
You'll
get one.
There's plenty for you guys.
We counted before they went in, so we know we're safe.
Well, you guys can share one. I'll give you like halfie.
Jamie, you can come in and grab a cookie for the rest of the gang here, don't you think? Yeah. But I mean, do you have is it you decide every Tuesday, we're at Union Station, and every Wednesday we're at McPherson Square, and every Thursday we're at Old Town Alexandria, or something like that? I mean, is it?
Yeah. So that's so for example.
Jamie, he's not coming in.
Wednesdays, I don't have a lottery spot. So then that's my day. I kind of, roam, or I become a rogue truck where I say, I haven't been to the Shaw neighborhood. Let's go to the Shaw neighborhood. I'll, maybe send out a tweet, or I'll reach out to some of my favorite truckers and say, hey, where you guys at today? And then we'll all just kind of coordinate and go to, let's say, the Shaw neighborhood.
And is that the kind of way it works around the country, like in Chicago or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really familiar with other regs or other food truck cities and how they do it. I know, for example, Portland or Seattle, they actually have pods. So the trucks they're like at fixed location, I guess.
Oh, they got,
fixed
like in
truck
Portland, there's a whole city block that's nothing but food trucks.
Right.
And great stuff, by the way.
So I mean, Chicago, for example, they've given the food truckers a very difficult time, just getting curbside. So, they also have, designated, food truck, I guess, destinations. But as far as just kind of like being rogue and saying, hey, we're going to carve out a new, let's say we're going to go to 23rd and, Chicago Avenue. That's not really the case for Chicago.
Yeah.
One thing I think DC is unique in the sense that, like, one, we have a very strong food truck community here, and a lot of the truckers, they work together because obviously, there's strength in numbers, hence you see like a food court and there's 15 or 16 different options.
Mm-hmm.
That's very similar to food truckers. The more you have, the more likely to draw people. So,
But also, you offer a variety of products, right? I mean, there are food truck. I mean, I see them at lunchtime and often go, where you can get a taco or you can get ice cream over here, right?
Right.
Or even and in the evenings in New York, I mean, you can get a full meal. San Francisco, full meal. There's people in L.A. People drive in from the suburbs to the taco trucks in East L.A. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think D.C. is becoming more like that, where you're starting to see. So, for example, I mentioned barbecue. Like, we pair well with barbecue. Barbecue is very American classic dish, staple in pretty much everyone's household. And then root beer floats or frozen custard, cobblers. I mean, again, those are very southern dishes, but they go very well together.
Yeah, boy, I'll say.
Hey, let me ask you, I've been to your place several times now. I've had your custard. You've got the best custard I've ever had.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, what's the difference between custard and like ice cream?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few differences. So for one, frozen custard is made fresh every day. Traditional hard ice cream, if you go to, let's say, like a competitive store, ice cream shop, typically it's not made fresh. It's brought in from a warehouse, made at an off-site factory, and then it's brought in. Frozen custard, I have my continuous freeze machine, and we make it fresh every day.
Nice.
Also, it has less air or overrun. So they're air and overrun, they're the same thing. So the more air you pump into, let's say, a frozen dessert, it expands more. So if you think like soft serve, froyo, it has a lot of air pumped into it. So you're getting less dairy and you're getting more air. So, a lot of folks use frozen. Yeah. It takes a lot more to give you feeling, whereas with frozen custard, it has very minimal air. It's marshmallow. It expands, but it doesn't change the weight of the marshmallow.
Right.
So it's very similar, approach. And then, frozen custard also has, eggs and egg yolk in it. It gives it that, that very creamy texture as a binder. So
I'm sorry, I haven't said much. I'm just enjoying this cookie. I've just been eating this cookie.
That's such a good cookie. It's amazing.
Do you have a number one bestseller?
Yeah, that's
you got to know what how much stuff to put on the truck. So what do you figure you're going to?
Well, so the good thing
floats.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So
custard.
So custard by far is the number one seller.
Cobblers.
The custard, frozen custard.
Well, that's number one, huh?
That's our number one. We make a vanilla bean frozen custard on occasion. On the weekends, we'll make a chocolate custard. But I would say we have 4 signature items. One being our root beer float. We have a cookies and cream sundae, and then we have a turtle pecan sundae, aka the boogie woogie, and then our jitterbug, which is the peanut butter shake. And I would say they're all very much in line as far as sales. Those are our 4 signatures.
Yeah.
I would say probably, but if I had to really pick one, I would probably say our boogie woogie, turtle pecan sundaes are number one seller.
All right. So where can people in the Washington, D.C. area, where can they find you online so they know where you're going to show up each day?
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter. Twitter, and our Twitter handle is GoodiesDC.
At GoodiesDC.
Yep,
right?
at GoodiesDC.
All right.
Or you can find us on Instagram, and that's Goodies. At Goodies. 3 M's.
3 M's. Goodies.com. I got to tell you. Pecan chocolate cookies.
I'm telling you, man. Cookies.
Triple chocolate cookies. Yeah, indeed. Wow, that's great.
Well, that's.
So, can we put a picture of this up on our website?
Yeah, absolutely.
So at least everybody can share it vicariously, right? Kind of. Right.
Exactly. You might not get to taste it, but
or virtually, I should say. Maybe
take a good look at it.
Right.
Unless they want to come to, find us on the truck or at National Harbor, then they're gonna have to just
look. If you're in DC or coming to DC, find Brandon for real. And you can't miss the truck.
Today's Thursday. You know where we're going to be today?
Yeah, we're actually going to be at Farragut Park today.
Oh, at Farragut.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll be Farragut Square Park, 17th and K.
Yes. I'm just trying to. I mean, another park. I was just trying to think what metro
heading down
stop
there?
it is.
Cookies for breakfast, custard for lunch.
All right.
We got you covered. Don't worry.
Right. Well, thanks for making us your first stop today, Brandon. All right,
Thank you
great
for having
to see
us.
you again. Brandon Byrd again. It's at GoodiesDC or 3 M's, goodies.com. Have a cookie, folks. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 12 minutes. Make it 11 minutes before the top of the hour. I got to tell you, Peter, they were great cookies, but I could not eat 2 of those.
Dude, they're damn good cookies.
You know, they're so good.
Speak for yourself. Maybe have 3 or 4.
I could maybe eat more than one cookie. They're damn good cookies.
They are indeed. Goodies. Go find them. And I hope you have an equally good treats truck, food truck. Seriously, the food truck, this is a whole new kind of wave, and I love it. And you can get really good stuff.
You sure can.
Yeah. At any rate, we're moving right along here. Wanted to bring you up to date on the latest. You know that it's about a week or 10 days ago that the deposition was released in the Bill Cosby case 10 years ago up in Philadelphia. He settled that case, and as part of the agreement of settling that case, where he was accused of sexual assault by a woman in Philadelphia, joined, by the way, by 13 other women who said the same thing had happened to them. He had given them drugs in return for sex. One woman brought this case in 4 days of questioning at this deposition, and then Bill Cosby settled the case. And they agreed to nobody would talk about the case, right? They would all take an oath of silence, basically. So he was able to cover it up. But Associated Press went into court and told the judge that, this deposition wasn't sealed, and we have a right to read that deposition. And the judge listened to the case, and then he ruled, this is very interesting, he ruled that since Bill Cosby was famous for preaching, basically, and being a public moralist, and did so in several speeches, including the famous pound cake speech he gave to the NAACP, that since he was preaching in public to people, the public had a right to know what the private Bill Cosby was all about, too. And so he released the deposition.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. The judge said, we're no double standard here, right? And so, since the deposition has come out, in the deposition, Bill Cosby admits that he had all these sexual encounters with young women, admits basically that he preyed on them, that he lured them in, to trust him because he would give them advice on their career and all that kind of stuff. He just wanted to have sex with them. That he got 7 different prescriptions for drugs to give to these women for the purpose of having sex with them. And when all this came out, everybody said, oh, my God, here it is. These women were telling the truth after all. And at first there was radio silence on the part of Bill Cosby, or has been for the last 10 days, until yesterday. And now his attorneys are saying, now, wait a minute. He didn't say what the media is reporting that he said. Here is Monique Presley, his attorney, yesterday.
What we're looking at now is a situation where we started with a man who had not been charged with a crime, who has not been convicted of a crime, but instead has been accused of criminal activity. Well,
it was a civil case, not a criminal case, so technically she's right. Not accused of any criminal activity, and she says did not commit a crime. He didn't. She says he doesn't admit that. But the fact is, he admitted that he got the drugs. He admitted that he got the drugs for the purpose of giving them to women to have sex with them. He admits that he had sex with these women, so he doesn't admit that he raped them, but what more do you need? Yeah. Now she goes on to say, oh, let's blame the media.
What we're seeing so far are headlines that are grabbing one excerpt or two and then misinterpreting them. When the deposition said that there was use of Quaaludes, which was done often in the 70s. It was considered a party drug called disco biscuits, and it was something that was used frequently, not just by Mr. Cosby, but other entertainers.
Oh, so everybody was taking Quaaludes at the time. It was a party drug. Everybody was doing it.
That makes it okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
You know what? President Obama had the last word on this at his news conference last week. If you're getting drugs and you're giving drugs to the women and drugging women for the purpose of having sex with them, that's rape.
Yeah.
It's rape. And to the extent where the statute of limitations has not expired on some of these cases, and there's one in California where it hasn't, then Bill Cosby ought to be tried and charged with rape and convicted of it if the evidence is what it looks like. Back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, when people ask why I go to the White House briefings every day, I tell them you never know what's going to happen. Like yesterday, the briefing was almost over when Defense One's Molly O'Toole, our good friend, asked a question about what was going on with Gitmo, and suddenly Press Secretary Josh Earnest dropped a big news bomb. I can confirm, he said, that the White House is in the final stages of drafting a plan to submit to Congress on closing Gitmo. That was big news and good news. It's ridiculous to be spending $100 million a year to house only 116 remaining prisoners at Gitmo, many of whom have already been cleared of charges and are only waiting for another country willing to take them. Look, first, we should close Gitmo as soon as possible, and then we should shut down the entire naval base. If we're really going to improve relations with Cuba, we don't need a military base in their front yard. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Thursday. Come back tomorrow. Clinton Yates here is a good friend of Bill tomorrow. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.